Really excited to introduce Andrea. She is the Chief Employability Officer. I think I'll go out on a limb and say you're the first Chief Employability Officer at a post-secondary institution in the U.S.
I think that's accurate, although I didn't put it on my slides because I didn't want to be held accountable for the fact.
I won't get you in trouble with the creditors, but when Brandon talks about employability and the role of employers in shaping post-secondary education, the urgency of more tightly coupling what's happening within institutions with the demands of the labor market, thinking about, as you do, not just the skills, but the behaviors that need to be developed through post-secondary education in order to ensure that your graduates are, in fact, employable and thriving in the world of work is something that you're obviously very much on the front lines of. So I'm thrilled to introduce you. I'll leave the stage. I won't take, is this your phone, Jamae? Do you need this? I'm going to grab Jamae's phone and turn it over to Andrea.
I am trying to. Morning, sorry for that. I am lavaliered and I have a mic that works, so excuse me if there's any kind of noise. I usually move, and Jamae said there's a massive table, so I'm not sure if you're going to be able to move the way that you typically do. So forgive me for moving a little bit differently than I might otherwise, but I don't want to be stuck behind the podium. I'm so grateful to be here. I've never been to Santa Fe. I love Santa Fe, Jamae. Like, I will totally come back to Santa Fe, and I'm really grateful to have met so many interesting, thoughtful, passionate people. My name is Andrea Backman, and I'm representing today Strategic Education, Inc. So this is the Office of Employability. So I only have 10 minutes, and I'm going to hopefully share things that I think will be conversation starters with a lot of you. But before I get started, and I literally can't make this up, and for those people in the room who know me, and how many of my colleagues are in the room here? Did anybody get up early enough? Thank you for showing up. I took an Uber, which was probably lazy because I was pretty close, from my hotel here. My Uber driver's name was Georgie. And Georgie asked me what I did, so I tried to describe what I do. It's not as easy as sort of previous roles. And he said to me, I don't mean to be crass, but can I tell you a joke? I said, please. And I always start with a story, and I didn't have one today, so I'm so grateful to Georgie that he gave me this, and I'm not making it up. Georgie said, do you know the difference between a pizza pie and a college graduate? Do any of you know, have any of you heard this joke? Because I had not heard it before. Raise your hand if you've heard it. A pizza pie can feed a family of 4. I literally couldn't have found a better quote to start this with. So thank you for humor. I couldn't believe it. There I was in this. So Georgie's right, though, and that's the point of the conversation today. So for those of you who don't know SEI, in August of last year, Strayer Education and Capella Education merged. I had never been through a merger before. I think it's been an absolute beautiful marriage. But what we have today under the umbrella of Strategic Education, or SEI, are 2 pretty large, significant universities, one undergraduate focused, one really graduate doctoral focused, 100,000 learners, and probably double that in alumni. So we have massive work underway to do things differently, and what Brandon was just talking about is exactly in line. That is not what I'm going to share today, but we have a lot of work to think about alternatives to the current structure. I have to move over here to flick, that's why I'm doing that. So, sorry, let me go here. So I have spent the last 25 years, a little hard to say that out loud, thinking about 2 really important issues that I think a lot of people in this room think about deeply. One is access, so opening the gates wide for people to access higher education. And the second one is academic achievement. So if you open the gates wide, you have a promise that you're making to the individuals that you've opened it to, that they will realize their dream and get to the finish line. So I have had a great ride. I've worked with Jack Welch and his institute, the UVA for 7 years, DePaul University in Chicago for 7 years, Strayer University, and now I was asked to take on this new role as Chief Employability Officer. And I would have thought I would have paused, because I thought I was on a trajectory for something else, but I was like, no, absolutely. Because the shift that I want to talk about for the next 7 minutes or so is really about economic mobility. We all talk about it, right? But it's a shift in not just thinking about access and achievement, but in thinking about professional and financial return for anybody who makes an investment in higher education. That being said, academic outcomes aren't enough. It could be blasphemy in some circles, but it's just not enough, and here's why. And college education is the second largest investment a person will make in his or her lifetime. And that assumes that the person will have the opportunity to buy a house. This is not to be taken lightly. People need measurable, impactful return on investment when they come to college. And we, as educators and professionals and the community of who we are as Americans, need to solve for this. And as you know, because we've talked about it, so I left these very high level, student debt levels are way too high, both nationally and at the individual student level. Time to completion is way too long. So if you take anything in your life that you think about year after year after year after year, it gets more efficient, it gets more productive, it gets slow, it gets quicker and quicker and quicker. That hasn't happened in higher education for the most part. It takes too long. And then return on investment, I know there are some people in this room who are thinking deeply about if someone invests $30,000 in a college education and interest rates are such and inflation is such, are they actually getting a return? But I will go out on a limb to say that we are not, as a nation, thinking about what return on investment is. And it's an imperative. We have to do it. So that is the work of my team. And my team is here in the room. We don't have a lot of time today, but happy to answer any questions. But we are focused on short-term and long-term employment gains for learners and graduates that has measurable, impactful ROI. And we don't wait till the day they graduate. We're starting now, the day they come with us, and helping them think about what do they expect to have happen because they're going to spend $30,000, and they're going to spend 4 years, and they're going to have time away from their children. So that's the mandate of my team, maniacally focused. So in a very short, this is a very, high-level way of just phrasing ROI as economic mobility, but what goes into our ROI calculations and how we think about it is actually quite complicated. So for anybody who's interested in learning what we're doing, I'm happy to share more when we have more time, but it's really about thinking about economic mobility. Within ROI, we have 3 levers. We think about these 3 levers all day long. It's debt, it's time to completion, and it's earnings over time. So these are the 3 things that we expect to move the needle on as a team. So high level, I'm going to give you an example of, so I started my role in January of what we're doing in each of these particular buckets. So on the debt front, institutions can continue to lower cost of education, and many have. We have certainly done that at our institutions, but students still choose to borrow to the max. And it is, when you look at borrowing against future earnings, against inflation, and it's not sustainable, as you all know. So we just took a group of 600 students. Well, we started with a pilot of 400. 200 students, after financial literacy counseling, it's nothing new, but it was a new kind of intervention, reduced their borrowing amounts by significant amounts. They didn't need it. When we talked to them about what it meant to do that later in life, they reduced. And so now we're scaling that. We've hit 600 students. The same pattern continues. So just different kinds of conversations with students can help reduce the amount that they take. On the time front, so time to completion, average time to completion needs to change. I know that a lot of us are hamstrung by clock hours and seat requirements, but on the Capella side, we have a really pioneered competency-based education to allow students and employers to spend less TA dollars on the employer front, and on the student front, get a credential at a time and pace that makes sense for them, really cutting down the amount of time and cost that students have in Capella. And we're spreading that across Strayer as well. It just takes a bit of time to do that. On the earnings fronts, trying to check my time here. There is a time clock here. There are 2 pathways that we're looking at. One is, if we're really serious about measuring earnings over time, we actually need to measure it. So we have a big work stream underway that Thomas on my team here is leading to collect incoming data every year they're with us, and would they attribute any earnings differential to what they're experiencing here with us, and then 1, 3, 5 years post-graduation. So we're measuring earnings, and we're doing a lot of other things. That's just a simplistic view. On the other part of it, we have massive interventions underway to help people understand you don't have to wait until you get a college degree to think about changing your earning trajectory. What are you going to do now? What have you accomplished? What can you put on your resume? How can you position yourself differently? This is the last thing I'm going to talk about today really quickly. I think I have a few minutes. We have, it's one slide that describes a whole bunch of 3 years worth of work, embedding ourselves with employers, big employers, sitting alongside of them, working with their frontline employees, trying to understand what skills do they have and what skills do they not have that you need in your organizations. So we pulled a team of talent and literally embedded them in big, big companies across the United States and worked with employers to come up with these 10 skills I've heard a lot about skills. I'm so excited everybody is excited about the skills. A lot of them are evergreen and similar. What we've done is completely renovated? Reimagined, renovated, I guess, our general education curriculum as the start in both Strayer and Capella. These skills are baked into general education as a way to let students know that when you're learning about an introductory computer science course, the reason it matters is that employers care about productivity and creative thinking, and those are the things you're actually also going to learn in this course, and we're going to measure it, and we're going to tell you how we're doing. We launched this in summer, and the results have been amazing. So 1,200 students in pilot, 2,000 in control. Students who understood why they had to take this course and how it was connected to employer and what it is that was going to actually be advantageous for them are doing far better. So these skills, for those of you who are on the university side, 30 to 40% of an undergraduate degree program is the liberal arts. I'm a liberal arts major. I totally believe in the liberal arts. But if it's not connected to work, what are we doing? So that's what this is intended to do, and this is just the start. So with that, I'm just going to end on, because I wanted to get back to the theme, which is the shift, right? Is the shift that we need to continue to open the gates for access, and we need to continue to get people to the finish line for graduation, but we really, really need to be thinking about lifting people's return on investment and economic mobility and lifting them up. Thank you.